I was up in Swananoa, and at the Swananoa Guitar Week to start out, and I played a couple of shows in Asheville area, and come down here to see what was going on. Just going to check my tuning, and I want to start by just playing some instrumental guitar music. Get this Crown Royal bag out of the way. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. This program. Well, y'all are early birds here. Picking up a rent car at the airport in Nashville, had my guitar with me, and there was family waiting for the same lift I was. I said, well, where are you going? You playing in Nashville? I said, no, I'm already done. I'm going down to Brasstown to play down there. I start at 7 o'clock in the morning. Disabuse them of any prior notions they might have had about guitar players. But we are a bunch of early risers, actually. Doing this for a living makes you nervous. I'm going to start by playing a little instrumental music. I think some of us might still be tearing themselves away from their bed of pain. So I'm going to play, I woke up this morning thinking about an American, very American piece called the Spanish Fandango, of all things, which was originally published in the 1840s. It was written by a guy named Henry Worrell. Published by this company, a publishing company out of Cincinnati, Ohio, which in the 19th century was the epicenter of American guitar music publishing. And there were a lot of guitar players in the United States, not the kind we have now. Nobody got hair replacements or anything like that, or to play the guitar. People mostly played guitar at home to entertain themselves and one another. If somebody was going to play professionally, it was generally a banjo that they chose. And the quieter, more dulcet guitar was reserved for home entertainment. And Henry Worrell's compositions, you could get a little book of Henry Worrell's Guitar School, #1, #2. And you could learn these little pieces. A lot of them were in these open chord tunings, so you could play with one finger. If you're playing the guitar, I highly recommend you do that. You don't need to use all of your fingers like you see these people doing on television. Anyway, so So Worrell made this thing, it was a waltz, that's what a fandango is. Pretty, you know, that's one of 4 parts of the Spanish fandango. But what I found was interesting is what happened to the Spanish fandango after it had been hanging around for a while. It was the guitar hit of the 19th century. Everybody played it. I want to think that when Mark Twain was on the boat circumnavigating South America, and it's a matter of historical record that he had a Martin guitar with him on the boat, and other people that were on the boat actually kept journals about how he was driving them out of their minds with that guitar. And I like to think of Mark Twain playing the Spanish fandango. Anyway, the song persisted and was adapted by people that didn't have any books. They just played it the way they remembered it. I'm going to fiddle around with it a bit. The first thing I want to play is the Spanish fandango as it was interpreted by a guy who's a big favorite of mine. If they had velvet paintings of Frank Hutchison, I would keep one. He was from Logan County, West Virginia, coal mining country up there. And he learned how to play blues and also slide guitar ostensibly from a gentleman of color named Bill Hunt. We don't even remember, don't even actually know exactly what Bill Hunt looked like, but kind of get an idea what he sounded like, because Frank Hutchison was the top of the heap. And for some reason he adapted that technique to what he remembered or thought of or reorganized as the Spanish fandango. I'll play that for you. Frank Hutchison. Thank you. If I'm playing music here that's appropriate to your state of wakefulness here. T-Claw, and I want to acknowledge the contributions of our fearless leader over here, was asking me last night when was the last time I played a gig that started at 7:45 in the morning. I said, I didn't rightly remember. I remembered more of them that actually ended at 7:45 in the morning. So we discovered that Paulding County, Georgia is not as close to here as I supposed it was when I decided to incorporate another version of the Spanish fandango into my morning guitaristic peregrinations. But Paulding County is down near Atlanta, which makes it part of our Piedmont region. And there's a guitar phenomenon that basically bled from Richmond all the way down there to the area of Atlanta, following the Piedmont to the Carolinas on the eastern side of the mountains. A bunch of guitar players there. Somehow related to tobacco and as always living on a budget. And there was down in Paulding County, an exponent of the Piedmont guitar phenomena was a guy named John Dilly, who as a teenage boy was distinguished by the fact that he was, they called him 7-foot Dilly. However, his longtime musical associate who lived to be an informant, Pink Lindsay, said he wasn't 7 feet tall. He was a good 6'7" though. Anyway, so 7-foot Dilly, when he was a teenager, was out running around the woods of Paulding County hunting, and he shot himself in the foot. And it took him quite a long time to recover from that. And there was a neighbor of his, also a gentleman of color. This recurs in our American guitar history. A gentleman of color that lived down the road, showed everybody how to play guitar. Anyway, this taught 7-foot Dilly to play, and he got kind of good at it. And he had an interesting version of Spanish fandango. Those of you who are pretty up on the world music, what they call world music today, know that the fandango is a traditional Spanish dance, and it's in treble meter. It's a waltz. But so I'm going to play just a bit of another version of the Spanish fandango. This is Dilly's version, and it shows how exposure to the American process changes things. This is 7-foot Dilly Spanish fandango. You notice that it's no longer even a waltz. popularity of his compositions in the 19th century, he informed the repertoire and style of American guitar, along with a number of other performing and composing guitarists. He was kind of the tip of the iceberg of an American popular guitar tradition. His stuff was so popular that the open chord tuning I was just in is known in American vernacular as Spanish. He said, for when I used to play with Furry Lewis, he said, "I've just been in Vastapool, put me in Spanish." And the name of the tuning refers to the fact that the Spanish fandango was played in that tuning, so people called it "put me in Spanish tuning." So it's fandango. And actually what I did just now was I obeyed Furry's old directive in reverse on. I was in Spanish, and now I'm in Vastapool. Vastapool, when Furry used to say that, "put me in Vastapool," I know what he meant. He meant this tuning right over here, but I wondered why he had that funny name for it, Vastapool. I thought maybe he had it like a swimming pool. I subsequently found out that actually the name Vastapool is it's Sebastopol, and it's actually the name of another of Henry Worrell's compositions, which was called Sebastopol, a Descriptive Fantasy. And that was published years later. Worrell had a very long career, and that was published in the 1870s, I think, concomitant with the Crimean War, which was big news back then. I think some of you remember that. Right? Where's your hat? Please. Anyway, yeah, and the siege of Sebastopol, which is on the Black Sea there, was a pivotal engagement in that particular conflict when Sebastopol fell. It turned the tide of the war. The siege lasted for almost a year, 348 days, if I'm not mistaken. The city was under naval siege by combined forces of French, Turks, and Sardinians. Sounds like a lot of trouble to me, I'll tell you. And so it was in the news, you know, when people picked up the paper. What's going on in Sebastopol today? And how does it go? Speak to the camera for a bit. And those of you who are live streaming in other parts of the world, here in Brasstown, North Carolina, it is approaching 8 o'clock in the morning. We all just got up. And so did my fingers. Anyway, that was a little snatch of this Sebastopol piece. Very popular tuning. I'm going to play a little bit in that. One of the single most popular American guitar pieces of the 20th century. It's been covered by more guitar players, I think, statistically than any other piece of guitar music. It was composed by a guy first recorded in 1923, a guitarist from Louisville, Kentucky, named Sylvester Weaver. Hit it out of the park, and his version was popular enough that it caused every guitar player in the world, from Leon McAuliffe with Bob Wills' Texas Playboys to Merle Travis, to your humble servant, Steve James, choose to do a version of it. This is the guitar rag. instructed last night to play until the breakfast bell rang. So hopefully I only have time for one more number. This is nice. I very much enjoy actually playing in the early morning. Y'all have the characteristics of a good audience. You're all very bright-eyed. I especially enjoy playing, and I very seldom get a chance to do so. I like to play for people who are knitting. That's the audience characteristic I like. I've had quite enough of this stuff. You know? I really enjoy knitting. I think I've got time for one more, and I want to play a song about the hard times and the old times and stuff. This is one that I made up myself, that I call a Birmingham Steel. Breakfast bell hasn't rung yet when I'm through with this. I'll just segue neatly into another piece and improvise until I hear the bell. And we'll all make a beeline. And there's a coffee machine. So it sure is nice to be here. I stopped off yesterday in Murphy. I thought I might need some mac cheese later in the night, so I stopped off at a little bistro. And somehow it came up in conversation that I wasn't from here. I don't know why. But anyway, I said to my server, I said, well, it sure is pretty in the mountains. She said, it's better in the fall. I wish it was fall, that's what she said. Waiting up one night on a southbound train in a station so dark, where Willie used to sing. It was dark and still, and it could make you feel as blue as the night, cold as a rail made of Birmingham steel. I thought I heard Mr. Henry cry. I laid has been bulldozed aside. Go on home, I heard an auctioneer say the bid is closed. Everybody knows how much they're gonna pay. But until the day tear this good road down, I'm gonna take my trade from town to town. And if I don't care much for the things I see, yeah, that's alright. There's no place else for people like me. Seeds in the ground and the fishes in the sea, and this cold black coal down below my feet, and the faded sign above the station town, it ain't coming down this good road no more. When it's gone, there won't be no tombstone, just a miner's blood and a fisherman's bone and a farmer's sweat and an engineer's wheel, and you can lower them down with a chain made of Birmingham Steel. Breakfast bell. I wonder what Leonard Copeland would have to say about that. Shall we anticipate the breakfast bell, or you want to hear one little instrumental tune? Okay, all right. So I used to live over in the Tri-Cities. I haven't always lived in Seattle. I spent most of my adult life in Texas. And the gentleman and I here last night were talking at the jam session. He recognized the cut of my jib. My street of early sorrows was the Bronx. That's where all this good roots and blues guitar players come from. Anyway, I spent most of my so-called adult life in Texas. I now live, as T-Claw said, in Seattle, Washington. Call that living. But at one point, I lived over in the Tri-Cities in Jonesboro, Tennessee. And I was sitting up there one evening as the sun was sinking down over the hills, and I was listening to an old record, and I was reading the liner notes, and the liner notes told me that Leonard Copeland was from Beckley, West Virginia. So back in those days, they had a telephone where you could call directory assistance. Remember that? Yeah. 411, not 9. And somebody to answer the phone. In this case, the lady answered the phone, and she said, "Beckley, West Virginia, may I help you?" And I said, "Yes, you can help me." Help me to the phone number of one Leonard Copeland. She said, "I don't have any Leonard Copeland, but I do have 2 Ale Copeland." I said, "Well, let me have both of them." So she gave me 2 phone numbers, and I contemplated them for a moment, and I called the first one that I picked. And Leonard Copeland answered the phone. I talked to him briefly. I said I'd like to come up there from Jonesboro to Beckley. It wasn't that long a drive as the crow flies, as they like to say here in the mountains. He seemed a little bit restive. It had been a long time since I think anybody had called and asked for Leonard Copeland, the great guitarist. So I told him, rather than to press him on the issue, I said, "Well, I'll call you back in a couple of days. I know you're a busy man, and so am I. I'll look at my schedule, and maybe I'll call you back in a couple of days, but we can figure out a time that works for both of us." So I called back in a couple of days, and Leonard Copeland did not answer the phone. His daughter answered the phone. And she told me that Leonard wasn't really a well man, and that maybe it wasn't the right time for a visit. And I listened to her, which I'll always regret doing, because I wasn't feeling that great myself, so Leonard Copeland and I probably could have had a good time. Anyways, but I think about Leonard Copeland and the very few recordings that he made back in 1927, 28. And I made up a song. This is called Copeland's Fancy. It's not by Leonard Copeland, it's what I got from him.